And we're live. That always happens that way. We are live, hanging out on the barbershop, just as I was getting my iPad, which doesn't matter because it's out of battery anyway. Hanging out with WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Christopher Salute. What's up? What's up? What's up? You know how we do. Just trying to share the show a little bit with some folks so that we can get it out there. If you kick me out of your group, it's fine. It is what it is. You know, Cece, and this is always a good opportunity too. If you're not single anymore, so I can't even include you in like my little tactic here. But when I share my show, sometimes I'll like share my show with somebody that I'm like kind of having a crush on a little bit and I haven't talked to in a couple of days, and I'll share the show with them and be like, "What's up? Like, where you at? Watch my show." And they're like, "Oh, you're just thinking of me." I'm like, "No, not really. Like, you're just, you just happen to be one of my last contacts, so I'm going to share the show with you." Meanwhile, I'm like literally looking for a reason to talk to that person. Tonight, we're going to talk about a really interesting topic. And I'm sorry, I have to apologize. Cece, I'm going to say like, and if you don't know, I'm talking to Cece, who's in the background. Cece, I'm going to say probably one of the most Italian things I've ever said. I was eating some salami earlier, and I've got salami like stuck in my throat. So if I'm like clearing my throat tonight, that's why. And on that note, we're going to talk about Bro Talk tonight. We're going to talk about detoxing what seems to be sometimes toxic Bro Talk, right? What is toxic Bro Talk? What is Bro Talk in general? What can we do to kind of, combat that, that toxic Bro Talk? So I'm going to start the show with, what's going on with me, what's going on with the network, what's going on with everybody, awesome stuff. So what's going on with me? I am pivoting in my career, starting a new job this week. Super excited about that. I am also doing some new life coaching stuff. I'm working with some brand new companies, which I'm super excited about. I have, Cece, you're going to get a kick out of this. I have started a premium Snapchat, and I have started an OnlyFans, but I have started a premium Snapchat and an OnlyFans for my life coaching. So like people are like, "Oh my God, you started an OnlyFans and a premium Snapchat," like just for coaching. But I'll be honest, kind of got me wondering, because a lot of people were like, "Where do I sign up? How do I get some cool pictures? How do I get some like risque photos of you?" And I'm like, "Whoa, hey, it's just for coaching. Like it's just coaching, right?" But it kind of got me thinking, like, how risque can I get without getting in trouble? Like, people say that my hands are nice. Like, do I have nice hands? Or like I have like cute feet and calves. Like, can I show those off a little bit? Maybe a little dad bod without the face. I don't know. How risque can we get? What's going on with the network? Super excited to announce that we've got some new shows coming on the way. If you've been tuning in, you've seen a couple of new shows like Dad's Going Solo. We're going to have a new guest on our show in a little bit, actually, that I'd like to give her own show to. So we'll see how that pans out. I'm not going to give you all the details, but she's somebody that I talk about quite a bit. So we will hopefully kind of see how that works. And with that said, before we get into the Bro Talk, I would like to have a quick moment of silence, or a moment of, either a moment of silence or, just like a spiritual prayer. If you're a prayer person, just take 10, 15 seconds to think about somebody in your life. Maybe it's yourself. Maybe you need a little bit of healing before we get the show started. So it's going to be just an awkward 15 seconds of silence. Okay. So like I always do, look, I'm praying. You don't have to pray. You can just take a moment of silence. I think everyone's got to be spiritual on some level if you're here reflecting and learning on our show. But hey, that's just me. We are going to really, really hop into Bro Talk today. Okay. We're going to talk about Bro Talk today. It's super important to talk about. I want to jump into this particular topic, and if you're listening on TikTok, we appreciate you coming in too. I want to really talk about this topic because Bro Talk has so many different layers to it, and there's so many different facets of Bro Talk, right? So, like, what is it? What does it mean? What is Bro Talk all about? And the reason that I chose the headline Detoxing Bro Talk is because a lot of bro talk tends to be toxic, right? And that's kind of where we get this cancel culture where, bros get into this kind of, negative vibe. There's a negative energy, a negative feel going on. And, I think it's super important to talk about. If you're on TikTok, if you're on Instagram, if you're on Facebook, if you're on YouTube, like comment on this. I want to know what's up, like what you think about Bro Talk. I'm going to give you some of my experiences on Bro Talk. I'm going to talk about, some of the things that I've heard, some of the things that I've seen, some of the ways that we can kind of combat that toxicity, that kind of stuff. Why is it relevant? It's relevant because it's in everything. It's in everywhere right now. I mean, people are being canceled for things that they've said 15, 20 years ago. People are being called out about things that they've said behind closed doors and whatever. Should they have said those things? No, probably not. Definitely not. I mean, depending on what they actually said versus, what's being talked about. And I'll tell you what that means in a second, because I've been talked about with regard to Bro Talk, and the things that people said about me definitely never left my mouth because I'm just not that kind of a person, right? We'll talk about that, and with regard to social media and the internet, I mean, everything you do, right? Everything you do is on social media and the internet. So it's like, are we even should we even be saying these things? Like, should we even have bro talk, right? Everything you say can be repeated. I just watched, I'm going to give you a spoiler. If you have not seen the new Marvel movie, Shang-Chi and the 10 Rings, just close your ears for a second. I'm going to give you a spoiler because I just watched it last night. When I get anxious, and sometimes I do get anxious, I tend to, I'll go to a movie for a couple of hours. It does a couple of things for me. It shuts my brain off. It gets me thinking about the fantasy world because I love to write, and I'm a big writer. It occupies my hands because I'm always going to eat popcorn, always going to eat popcorn. It occupies my mind, and it stops me from using my cell phone. So when I'm anxious, I'll go see a movie. So last night I went and saw Shang-Chi and the 10 Rings, and this guy's trying to stay under wraps. He's trying to not be out there, and he gets hit up by these guys who are trying to take this pendant of his. And he beats the ever-loving crap out of them on a bus. And it gets caught on YouTube, and now he's this sensation, right? So the point is, everything that you do is going to be potentially broadcast. So why say something that you don't want repeated, right? If you don't want it in the headlines tomorrow, don't frickin' say it. You know what I mean? So I'm going to talk about 3 movies that, if you haven't seen my show before, we always start with 1 or 2 movies, 3 movies that kind of, have this topic in mind, right? So the topic is toxic bro talk and how we detoxify it, right? And we're going to talk about those movies, and we're going to hop into the actual topic of my experiences. We're going to talk about what the experts say, that kind of stuff. So the 3 movies I want to bring in: John Tucker Must Die, One of the Guys, and The Wolf of Wall Street. So John Tucker Must Die, there's a scene where, if you haven't seen John Tucker, you got to see this movie. I mean, this dude was taken down like nobody's been taken down, and he just bounces back. It almost reminds me of when those bloggers kind of hit me up and attacked me a couple of years ago, because it's just they try every tactic to get this, to destroy this man, and he's a resilient guy, so it's cool. And he's in the locker room, and they're watching him in the locker room, right? And he's a player, and he's a chauvinist. He's definitely lying to these women, and they want to prove to Kate, the girl who loves him or is falling in love with him, that he's just like every other guy, and he just wants what he wants, right? And to be honest, he didn't even at first get involved, and then he kind of engaged with the bro talk. They were like, "Yo, you gonna hit that? You gonna hit that? You gonna hit that?" And he's like, "Look, yo, Kate's whatever." He says a 68 Bordeaux. He probably says 69 Bordeaux because that would be it, right? Kate's a 69 Bordeaux. You don't just pop that the first night you hang out with it. You got to, and then he just he leaves it, right? Which, look, if you're hanging out with the bros, it's not a terrible way to say it. You know what I mean? That's not the worst way to say it, right? So then, this other dude's "Oh, I see, uncorker then porker," and they start chanting and uncorker. And so then he engages. He jumps into this, he starts swinging in the air, and he starts doing the thing. So he does engage in some toxic bro talk, and she catches him, and it's not cool. So it becomes a pivotal point in the movie. The second movie I want to talk about real briefly is just One of the Guys. There aren't too many scenes that I remember specifically because I haven't seen that movie in a minute, although it's one of my favorite movies. It's about a woman who wants to get an article published, so she cross-dresses dresses like a man and goes to a different high school. They redid the movie with Amanda Bynes playing soccer, but it's a really cool show, really cool movie. And there's a lot of bro talk, in that movie that, she experiences. Miss Timmery, let me read this real quick. Leave that up for a second, Cece. It's culturally controversial when the former president talks about committing sexual assault and explains it away as simple locker room talk, and half the population think it's okay. Oh, yes, Cece, can you bring that back, like, into women to an object like a bottle of wine is the issue. It's about ownership and objectification. Yes, I want to talk about both of these things. Okay, so Cece, can you bring those back up for me in a minute? Yes, I agree with you. Comparing a woman to a bottle of wine, I get. At the same time, look, it was a rough scene, right? He definitely was swinging at the air or whatever. He tried to at the beginning. Here's the problem with bro talk, right? Is you're in this atmosphere, and that's why when we talk about detoxifying it, you're in this atmosphere of like major masculinity machismo. And so you've got to, as a man or not, right? Because I'll talk about why did detoxify. He felt he needed to pacify his boys, be a tough guy, right? But also express his like want for this woman. And that's where the problem is, because I don't want to give it away, but like when we talk about detoxifying it, you're going to have to take a stance in one way or another, right? So, all right. So Timmery, we'll talk about that in a little bit. I don't know that the Bordeaux line was the worst part of it. I think the worst part of it was getting up on the thing and swinging at the air. I thought the Bordeaux line was this guy. I mean, this guy's 17 years old, right? In the movie, I thought it was his at least attempt at trying to be like, yo, this girl is special. You know what I mean? Like he's trying. Give the guy a little bit of credit before we tear him down. He's trying, right? John Tucker was a charismatic guy, I think, in that movie. Lastly, Wolf of Wall Street. I mean, probably one of the worst offenders with regard to bro talk, without a doubt. I mean, literally the movie starts off with they're launching little people, which they're obviously calling midgets, right? They're launching little people at a target, and they're like, these things, and they're like in a room full of guys, like these things talk to each other. Like they're referring to human beings as things, right? I mean, the bro talk is absurd. From like, I can't even say the things that they said to me. I honestly can't say the things that they said in my, like, and feel good about it, right? Like, and if you hear from Jordan Belfort, if you talk to him about that movie and the book, he had to leave a lot of things out of that were sexually explicit and just absurd in general, because of how ridiculous his life actually was. He said he had to dumb it down for Hollywood versus most things when you play it up for Hollywood. On that note, if you're watching on TikTok, I love you. I appreciate you. You guys rock. Your 10 minutes is up, but please do check my Shorby. You could check us out right on YouTube, right on Facebook. Comment, like, talk to me. I want to hear. I love when Timmery calls me out on things, so definitely do that for sure. So I'm going to exit here. You can catch us there, or you can catch us on Instagram for the next 10 minutes. See you guys later. All right, and if you guys could just hold on for a second, I'm going to actually get us up on Instagram so that we can go live on there. Cece, I like this when we go live on Instagram and stuff like that. I think it's really nice. I think it's a really cool thing to check out. Oh, as I open up my Instagram, this girl who I follow on Instagram, I think she follows me. I was making fun of the Raiders, and she goes, "Oh, you're a Cowgirl fan? See, like that's bro talk right there, right? Because I'm a Cowboy fan, So, but now I'll have to get her back later. All right, so we're going to talk about detoxifying. I should have had this label already. Sorry, folks. Detoxifying, if I could spell it, detoxifying bro talk. And then if you can, Cece, I'd love you to put Timmery's question back up or comment back up, because I really do want to talk about that. I'm always accountable, right? And I want to talk about, did I say the wrong thing? Hey, was that wrong? Let's get it going. You know what I mean? Because I really want to make sure that I'm catering to, the folks that are watching the show. So if you're just joining us on Instagram, what's up? We're detoxifying bro talk. Sorry, girls, it needs to be said. Girl talk is equally offensive and toxic. That's hardly discussed. Equality goes both ways. I love that, Timmery. So if you're on Instagram, what's going on? We're just answering Timmery's question or talking about her statement. It's culturally controversial when the former president talks about committing sexual assault and explains it away as simple locker room talk, and half the population thinks it's okay. That's problematic. 100% agree with you there, and we'll talk about that. And then can you get the next part up, CC, that was talking about the movie that I was referencing? Like, comparing a woman to an object like a bottle of wine is the issue. It's about ownership and objectification. See, so Tim Marie, you're a friend of mine. I'm gonna agree with you 1001% on the Trump, because we're talking about Trump, right? I'm gonna agree with you 1000% on that, right? So look, I was never a Trump fan. I actually thought, in my brain that if we elected someone like this man, then maybe we would see how messed up our candidate system is, and we would take a stance. But apparently we did not, because a lot of people liked him, still do. I'm not a huge fan, and I'm not gonna. I am liberal, more on the moderate liberal side. I'm not like a bleeding heart liberal. There's new words introduced every day in liberalism that I just can't keep up with. But at the same time, I mean, this guy said things that were like out of this world. I'm not going to repeat what he said, to be honest, because you can look it up. And I don't want it coming out of my mouth. But yes, to talk about that, like locker room talk, is absolutely absurd. That's not locker room talk. I mean, that's sexual assault. That's, it's not like, I don't even know. Like, I can't even think of a way in which I've I can't think of a way in which I've been in that situation and like gotten myself out of, like, talked myself out of it. You know what I mean? Like, I just wouldn't say that. Look, when I'm with the guys and they talk about, like, first of all, me and the guys have a very different conversation when we're talking about bro talk. And we'll talk about that in a second, because I only date plus size women. And to be quite honest, most of, if not all of my guy friends, because I don't hang out in the bash scene anymore. Most of my guy friends are like, bro, I don't want to hear about that. And I'm like, oh, okay. Because my girl's hot as hell and she's a freaking supermodel. All right, dope. Like, I won't talk about it. She's all mine. So, and I'm also not the kind of guy, we'll talk about that in a second. I don't I'm not sharing a nude. I'm not sharing like a lewd photo. Like, I'm not being, oh, look what I got. Bro, that's mine. Like, that's my photo. She sent that to me. If you want to send it to another guy, I mean, we'll talk about that if we're exclusive. I don't like that, but that's my photo. Like, I don't want that. You know what I mean? So I've never engaged in that bro talk that much anyway. But now let's hit up on for a second, Tim Marie. I do want to hit the Bordeaux comment, because if you're just catching us, we were talking about, and then Tim Marie said something about girl talk again. Maybe y'all can enlighten me, because I'm not in the room when girls are having girl talk. I don't think you're wrong with the John Tucker must die. I was explaining why people could take offense. That's fair, and I see that. But I think that line was a funny line. He says something like, they're like, oh, are you going to sleep with Kate? Are you going to bang Kate tonight? And John Tucker must die. And he goes, you don't just like guzzle a 68 Bordeaux. You got it. You wait on that. Like, basically saying, like, she's a prized bottle of wine. And so Tim Marie was like, that's the problem. You're comparing her to a bottle of wine. And I get that, right? But I think the issue is, right, when you're in the room with the bros, sharing your want and your desire and your specialty, like, this woman's special to me, without, in a way that the bros are going to understand it. And it's a crappy thing to do. And we'll talk about how to detoxify it, because to be quite honest, like, I might just be like, yeah, bro, we're not doing it like that. Like, that's not how I do things. You know what I mean? Like, I would probably just, what's the word? Like, just talk it down. You know what I mean? I'd just be like, yeah, bro, that's not how we engage. You know what I mean? So, and then Tim Marie brought up something else, which I want to talk about for a second. She says that girl talk is just as offensive. And I find that really interesting. So, I do. I overheard this. I was at a bar the other day eating a cheeseburger, and by myself, and like, there were these two women next to me, and they're, they kind of looked at me, and I didn't really, to be honest, I was there for the burger. Like, I'm there for the burger. Somebody told me to go to my brother's bar in Denver. So I was like, yeah, let me go. I was traveling from Vegas. And what I thought was funny, though, and I'll get a little lewd about this, but like, these girls are looking at me, and I put the double cheeseburger in my mouth, and I didn't put it down, like, for the rest of the meal. And I'm just like eating on the double cheeseburger and like just like diving into the double cheeseburger. And I'm like, yeah, ladies, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I go hard, like, I'm hoping that there was some sort of like, weird metaphorical, daydreaming there, just to tick him off, because here's what I didn't love. It's funny that you brought that up, Timmery, because it just kind of triggered it for me. The one girl said to the other girl, like, oh yeah, like, so she was talking about like this guy who liked her. And she was like, yeah, like, I'm just going to tell him like late at night to come pick me up and drive me home and get me a cheeseburger. And like the girl was like laughing, and she's like, and he'll totally do it too. Like, he'll totally do it. And I'm like, oh, so like, you're just going to use this guy to like pick you up for when you're drinking with the girlfriends? Like, he's not, it didn't sound like it was her husband or her boyfriend, you know? So that I wasn't like a huge fan of. And like, that wasn't even girl talk. Like, I'm next to them at the bar. So maybe you're right, Timmery. Maybe like there's some girl talk that I'm not aware of. Right. On that note, we're 20 minutes right now. So we are going to take a quick break. What we're actually going to do is I'm going to hang out with Instagram for a little bit and just talk to you guys for a second. But we're going to take a break on our show. If this is your first time watching the show, we literally take like a 30 to 60 second break. We got to roll our advertisement, so somebody gets paid. Cece, you getting paid on that? I'm not getting paid. Somebody gets paid, and this way we can we can pay the bills. So if you're with us for the first time, chill for a second. We're going to be with you on some advertisements, and if you're on Instagram, I'll hang with you guys while we roll those. All right, you are watching WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. I am your host on The Barbershop. My name is Dr. Christopher Salute. Tonight, we are talking about detoxing the toxicity of Bro Talk. We'll be right back with you in a second. And if you're with us on Instagram, what's going on? Just saying hi. So we just take a quick break. I'm actually in a minute. What's up? What's up? What's up, everybody? I'm your host, Dr. Christopher Salute. You are watching WGSN-DB Going Solo Network Radio. How are you doing? We are hanging out. We are talking about detoxing the Bro Talk. Bro Talk has been such a both controversial and super talked about topic in like every form of media. We're live on Instagram. We were live on TikTok talking to folks. Want to just make sure that, we're focusing on our real peeps as well. So Timmery and I are having a great dialogue here. Girl talk can be even more problematic. Not all, but some women. Women share how much guys spend on them, how much guys earn, how good or bad guys are in bed. How is that not rude or offensive? I tend to agree. Let's talk about that. And then I'm going to jump into some of my experiences. In fact, that's a good transition because my experiences kind of have to do with that. So interestingly enough, if you followed me before, right, and you know what's up with me, you know that I was strongly canceled a couple of years ago, or they tried to, and they said some really nasty things about me. And a lot of things were true, well, a couple of things were true, I'll say, and a lot of things were untrue. And, that's just kind of how it goes, but it is what it is. I'm not going to sit here and get defensive over it. Let me tell you what was true. Let me tell you that the rumors about me spread from how much money I had to the point where women were actually upset with me when I didn't spend X amount of dollars on certain dates or whatever. I had somebody go on a rant. It's funny. I don't know, Cece, if you're down below, but I don't know if you remember when that happened. I was like super upset about it. And she like called me the other day because I accidentally followed her new Instagram account. Like my contacts merged, and she called me. She's like, LOL, why are you following me? And I'm like, never, ever, ever call this number again, you lunatic. Because she went off on like for 3 days after I repeatedly asked her to like do her research on me. And she actually, not going to get into it, but basically demanded that we sleep together. She went off on a rant about how I projected myself, that she heard that I has more money than I do, and I projected myself to have more money, and she'd spoken to people and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So that's been said about me. There was like a couple of folks who were talking about my prowess in the bedroom, my skills in the bedroom, to the point where I was getting text messages about it. There were chat rooms when I was going to these events, apparently chats about who was going to hang out with me first and who got me on certain days. What else? I think that is the majority of what I can remember. Definitely the money. I'm trying to think of what else. But those were definitely the big ones for sure. How much money I made, how much money I spent, whose sugar daddy I was going to be. Like, are you kidding? Do I look like a sugar daddy? I'm wearing a piece of paparazzi jewelry. This thing's $5. Do I look like a sugar daddy to you? I mean, at one point, yes, I did make some money. And I do okay. But like, no, I'm not a transactional guy. So like, to me, that really ticked me off. I'm the kind of guy, yeah, I spend money on my partner because I love my partner, because I love the people in my life, because I want to be there for the people in my life, and when I have my queen, yeah, there's nothing I'm not going to do for my queen. And unfortunately, I kind of treated a lot of people like queens when I should have been treating them like jesters, but here we go. So let's talk a little bit about, kind of my experience with, Bro Talk, and I'll talk a little bit about what the experts say. I like to bring some expert websites in, but let's also talk about we're here to detox, right? We're not here to just complain about it, right? We're here to make some changes. And, I think that's really important that we talk about like how we can actually make the changes we want to make with regard to that, that kind of bro talk. So I'll talk a little bit about my experience, and I've been kind of touching on it here and there, right? I don't really get the bro talk thing as much because, again, I'll say it again if it's your first time hearing it, but because I exclusively date plus size women, a lot of the boys, even, family, like if the guys in the room or whatever, I don't even engage in that bro talk because I know what the response is always. It's like, oh God, bro, stop talking about that. Like I have a gremlin fetish or something like that. I'm a, what do they call the people who like sleep with horses? Like an animal fetish. No, I just date women who have thicker thighs than yours and bigger bellies. You know what I mean? And they're like, oh God, don't even. Yeah, it's terrible. And so women like that set our genders back decades. Yeah, they do for sure. And men do too, right? The men who comment, and I'll just separate myself from those dudes, right? Like the men who are like, oh God, don't talk about that. First of all, I'm not even like, I'm not getting into the details of what I'm lifting, pulling, swinging, throwing. You know what I mean? Like, so there's nothing to talk about. Like, if somebody's like, "How was your date?" I'm like, "Yeah, it was a third date. Like, I was super excited because we slept together." Like, that would be like, like we were intimate. Like, it was good. Like, I slept really well, and then we got Haagen-Dazs and hung out, and you know what I mean? Like, and like leaned back in bed and cuddled. Like, that's the extent of what I'm talking about. I mean, unless it was something exciting, like she brought her girlfriend, or like we were at a sex club or something like that. I mean, nights like that have happened in everyone's life, I would imagine. But the extent of what I'm talking about is not that crude. So I agree with you, Timmery, for sure, and Kimmy, yeah, totally. I'll tell you a funny story about what I actually said behind closed doors during a bro talk and how it was interpreted. Okay. And then we'll hop into what the experts say. So I was heavy into the bash game, right? I used to go to bashes, and my dream, stupid dream, because just was I wanted to merge the very, well, not even the higher end, because it still isn't that high end, right? Plus size modeling is still not where straight size modeling is, and I'll say it, right? I'll say it. It's not, because plus size models don't make as much money. They don't. So you still have a lot of crossover with plus size models creating adult content, with plus size models doing other things, taking any gig that they can to make even close to the amount of money. I mean, you talk about like the Tessas of the world, you talk about the Ashley Grahams of the world, you talk about, there's a lot of these women, and they're not, I mean, for as many covers as they're on versus what they bring in, and don't forget, I've hung out with a lot of that crowd, right? And like the influencers too, with the 200,000, 300,000 followers, they have to keep, 500,000, a million followers. They have to keep their own job, like their day job. Whereas if you were a straight size influencer, you wouldn't have to do that, right? But anyway, I get off on tangents. My apologies. I was trying to merge that kind of higher end world with, I'll say it, I mean, because nothing to hide now, with the lower end world of the bash world, right? And I defended it too. I defended the bash world a lot, because I was like, almost like you defend, your toxic boyfriend or girlfriend. You're like, oh yeah, no, they've totally got potential. Like, I know they're beating me, but like they totally got potential. Forgive me, not that drastic, but like I know they're a loser or whatever. But they've got potential, and that's kind of what I was talking about the bash world. Like, it's got potential. It could be high end. Like we can merge it. We can meld it. And I couldn't. So one of the things that we were engaging with is a lot of the bash companies were inviting me to give talks, like kind of educated, research-based, panel-based conversations, right? And actually where the barbershop came from, the name barbershop, was I started a men's group. And here's the my contention was, look, dudes, bros, whatever you want to call it, right? We as men, look, this is not a men who like plus size women event, right? This is a BBW bash. I hate everything about the name, but it's what it is, right? Those women are here to hang out with themselves and to meet guys. Guys are here to hang out with them, right? Like the bonds between men at those events are few and far between. My contention was, look, dudes, you're going to probably date somebody, hook up with somebody, whatever the intention that you want and they want, right? You'll meet up. You're going to meet together, and then if it's over, it's over, right? Like you're not going to continue to hang out with that person. If you stop dating, you're not going to continue to hang out with that person if it's a one night stand. But the guys that are at these events, you're going to see week after week, or month after month, year after year, right? And so my thing was like, bros, we should all get together and hang out so that we've got a bond that we can forge and like talk about, like brotherhood, and that's something I'm big on. Like I've joined a kind of a fraternity, a men's group of recently, and it's super important to me. Like I like having strong men around me, and so we had this like closed doors, Vegas rules, what happens in this room stays in this room, Chatham House rules conversation. And I try to lead the conversation because not many of the guys there were talkative, and it was my room. So we're talking about it. We're in this like bar or whatever, and hanging out. And here was the basic notion of it, right? Was, guys, girls talk to each other about everything. They are more communicative than we are. If you want to have fun at these events, like talk to your bros, because they're going to give you insight as to what's going on. Like you may be pursuing a woman on the other side of the room, and all she wants is a one night stand, when what you want is actually a relationship. Vice versa, you may be down for just the weekend fling, and the person you're talking to might be somebody who's like looking for that longer term relationship, right? Or she may be like notorious, and trust me when I tell you this happens, she may be notorious for like getting free drinks from guys and then just like kind of leaving them and whatever, which is fine, but you need to know what you're in for, you know what I mean? And so that was literally the context of the conversation. Like, yo, give each other, like, talk to each other. And also, like, at the same time, bond with each other, because there's more for us to do. Like, we'll be having more fun without the women in the room, because we'll be hanging out. You know what I mean? So then you're not so dependent on, did I hook up this weekend? Did I find a girlfriend this weekend? No, like, I hung out with my dudes. And you know what? If a girl wants to enter that room and that conversation, you're only more attractive because you're doing your thing. You know what I mean? So that was literally the gist. That was exactly what I said. Okay. When I started, exiting that space, and I started dating different women who apparently were being pursued by some of those men, Chatham House rules go out the window. Not only did they say everything I did say, they started saying things I didn't say. I quote, it was, this was a how to bag fat chicks talk, like, that I led. First of all, I've never said fat chicks in my life. Second of all, I never said bag in my life. Thirdly, I wouldn't tell anybody how to do that, because I'm not that good at it, because you could see how much trouble I got myself into. And B, why would I give you tips on how to hook up with the girl across the room that I want to hook up with? Like, not what I'm trying to do. So that's how it was kind of quoted. And I know this because, like, one or two women who I was dating, or whatever, came up to me after and was like, yeah, I heard that's kind of the story, the talk you led. And I was like, no, definitely not. So this is what I want to say about it, is there is toxic bro talk, but there is also the misinterpretation of that kind of bro code, that kind of bro talk, because there are often times, and you'll know this too. Like, I hang out with a group of guys here in Vegas that have some of the highest integrity you could possibly imagine. And we will literally talk about crypto, stocks, business, education, kids, family, charity, health, everything. We'll talk about treat, like, what's going on in the world. Like, how can we fix what's going on in the world between men and women? Like, we'll talk about that. So not all bro talk is toxic. Sometimes it's just things you need to get off your chest, because you're like, bro, I need to talk to somebody about this. Let's see what the experts have to say on this topic. And then I want to jump into, like, how to detox it, right? Because I think that's super important. Let me jump into, normally I find these, like, great listicles, right? These great, like, articles that are, like, kind of listified. And I couldn't really find that. So I found this very cool article, arre.co.in. So re.co.in. And, very interesting. This talks about, a little bit about, like, kind of just the different topics that are discussed during bro talk, right? Talking about, cars and alcohol and that kind of stuff. But then it kind of jumps into, I'm going to quote this exactly, because some of it talks about, just G-rated conversation, but then it goes into, I've been on the other end of numerous conversations featuring a woman on the ropes of either dignity or security. I've listened to men tell me with varying degrees of pride stories of women they intoxicated to take advantage of, women they emotionally manipulated, women they exposed the intimate details of, and women they drove as vehicles of a self-validated lifestyle. A misogyny so embedded and encoded, a patriarchy so rapidly metamorphosing that its violence can only be understood by looking hard in the mirror. I looked and I looked until I found myself in it. This article is written by, I should find the author because I think it's brilliant, Manik Sharma. I think that it is really just a brilliantly written, I'll see if I could, like, share it with our listeners or something, but what a wonderfully written article about talking about beneath the bro code, the expletives that happen, right? For example, when a cab driver told me that the lascivious details of something that I would have publicly raged at, I sat quietly, not joining in, but not declaring my exclusion either. The tightrope of morality couldn't be more ambiguous in application and clearer in its derivation. Publicly, we are many things we are not. Personally, this man probably sought a safe expanse of land to unload his guilt on. He probably saw me as a man off of whose docile and limp conscience he could bounce his guilt knowing he'd receive nothing in return. I found that so interesting that in this room of men, this guy was like, you know what? I'm going to be silent about this thing, right? Here's another one by the Daily Star. a couple of years back by Shayer Riaz. This is a little bit more mild. Talks about, cultural, economic settings produce toxic males, warm summer evenings at his university in Dhaka. He gleefully run around as a child, and here, people were calling him half lady, that kind of stuff, like using female as an insult. Then he talks about he learned to bottle up his feelings. Unlearning that was really challenging. Even in professional, this is one of my favorite parts. Even in professional settings, I lost it. The dichotomies were ever present. Engaging male coworkers meant suffering through endless sexist jokes and offhanded comments that the oblivious men had passed on their female colleagues. In maintaining professional relationships with other men, the constant berating of the work ethics of women was unbearable. The ludicrous comments, often devoid of the context that they probably had to take care of their own man children at home through cooking and cleaning as their unpaid wives, in addition to working in an office. Winding down from work meant game nights with friends who reveled in locker room talk, extended soliloquies centered around the interns' breasts, and the latest measure enforced by the HR manager in trying and failing to stop their advances, and how the New Year's office parties would be prime hunting grounds for some action. Even after the Me Too reached our shores, men still found a way to doubt accounts, call the characters of victims into question, and generally sided with the greater enclave of their own gender, whether or not they knew any of the details of the incident. That is where that's where bro talk gets toxic, right? I mean, toxic, dangerous. Toxic is like the least of it, right? That's outright dangerous. It's gross. It's awful, right? Now, I want to talk a little bit about how we can detox it, okay? Because I've been in these situations before, and I've been in these situations prior to, during, and after people have had what they've had to say about me on the internet. And here's a couple of ways that we as men can detox the bro talk, okay? It's interesting that the one article, this guy said, he felt guilty. I think he said he felt guilty in saying something to this cab driver who was unloading some sort of this burden on him, right? Like, let me free myself of this guilt, right? And he didn't want to create an unsafe space for this guy to talk about something that was unsafe. And that's a very interesting platform to talk about bro talk on. I'm going to say a couple of things, okay? Number one, I speak up, okay? So I'm definitely going to speak up 1,000%. I'm going to be like, nah, bro, it's not typically how I talk about women. You know what I mean? Like, it's not how we do things, Sometimes if it's somebody that I don't know that well, I might start off playfully. Like, let's say somebody's like, that dude runs like a bitch or like a girl or whatever. I'll be like, I'm sure by that you mean that he doesn't have the mechanics down when running from one place to the other. Like, he runs like a bad athlete, right? Because you definitely don't mean he runs like a woman, because I could introduce some women who can absolutely outrun the crap out of you, right? You know what I mean? Like, do something funny like that. Or like he fights like a girl. I'll be like, really? Because I'll bring over Misha Tate right now, who I've corresponded with, and she'll beat the ever-living shit out of you, right? Something like that. So kind of playfully, jokingly, that kind of thing. But I'm sure you mean that, right? Because there are other words that you can use, right? Instead of comparing a man to a woman. If you wanted to, you could use wuss or sissy. Those aren't great either. They're toxic as well. But at least you're getting the gender roles out of the way, right? Or how about just be like, you don't know what you're doing, right? I try to speak up as much as possible. Especially that was a challenge for me when I was a kid, because guys would definitely talk about what's it like to bang a fatty or whatever, and I'd be like, I don't know, because that's not what I do. I stop, you know what I mean? But at first, I was like, guys, shut up, I don't want to talk about it. So it's definitely challenging, right? One easy way to do this is to change the subject, right? Just change the subject, be anyway, wow, you watching the game right now? What's up? What's the score? You know what I mean? Just change the subject. You'll make things real uncomfortable real quick, right? People be like, it's definitely not something you want to talk about. Number 3, if there are very few people in the room, I'll go silent. I'll go silent on a topic. And I'll make it so uncomfortable that you don't want to talk about that anymore, right? And I haven't had to do this in a while, because the people that I typically hang out with don't do that, right? And then fourth, the last thing that I might do, I'll like fourth, kind of a fifth, is I'll try to speak bro a little bit before I ostracize. Like if somebody's talking about something that's like toxic and hurtful, like I'll try to really get in there. And even if I was like joking and being like, how do I say it like in a way that's like funny, but like not offensive? It's hard, I'm sure I've done it before, but, like I'll just say something like I'll even make a joke about like, yo, your mom doesn't want to be talked about like that. You know what I mean? Like that, like I'll like let's speak bro a little bit. You know what I mean? Like that's not what your sister said. You know what I mean? Or like something like that. Or I'll be like, just something like that. Or, like I'll like make a joke about like, I heard you cry in bed too, and then now we're getting that toxic language in there a little bit. And now I'm validated as like a man in that room. And now I could be like, no, but seriously guys, like that's not how I talk about women. So like, let's chill. Or I might get heavy bro on it too. Like I'll be like, yeah, dude, like I'm not all about that. Like my dude, like I'm not all about talking like that. You know what I mean? Like I'll get really bro, and start conversing in that way. The last thing that I might do that I've done before, again, I don't have to do this that often because the men that I speak with are typically of high integrity, but like I'll get like real highbrow. Like I'll get real high vibe on people. And I'll be like, yo, I invited you out as a man because I need more high energy men in my life. This is not the conversation I want to have. And that's what I'll say. You know what I mean? But again, like the guys that I typically tend to hang out with, they're IT professionals, they're lawyers, they're doctors, they're real estate investors, they're stock investors, they're, you know what I mean? Like they're business owners, they're what, and excuse me for a second. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a janitor or a live at home father, stay at home father. So forget that. I didn't mean that just because they have highbrow occupations, but these men are men of integrity just in general is what I should say. And I just don't have those conversations. You know what I mean? Like it's just not something that I tend to do. So I think what we need to really talk about when we talk about like detoxing this bro talk is it's really challenging to do it when you're not in the room. The easiest way to do it is while you're in there. And I think that's super important to consider is put yourself in those situations where you can actually make that difference, right? Otherwise you just wind up like in a situation where, I don't know, it's not going to be good. Even just I know of people too. I know of friends, acquaintances more that have just engaged, like not even engaged in those conversations, but been in the room or been in the chat box when those conversations have happened. And like, you could lose your job. You could be you could be called upon in a court case. Like you don't want to be in that situation. Like it's just much easier to be like, hey, it's not the conversation I want to be in. In fact, that's a great excuse. Be like, hey, you know what? With the way the world is right now, not a conversation I want to be involved with. I'm going to step out. When you're back to talking about cars, or you're back to talking about sports, or you're back to talking about, I like Broadway shows. You're back to talking about musicals, or Dungeons and Dragons, like hit me up. I'll come back in the room. Like I'll come back to the bar, but I'm going to go to the bathroom. I'm going to go I'm going to have a cigar, whatever. So that's typically what I try to do. Definitely a controversial topic, definitely a hard topic to talk about. I thought it would be a lot easier, but like even me kind of examining my own challenges as I've been in the room before. I want to really thank everybody who commented today. And I want to really thank everybody who engaged in this conversation because it's a tough one. You have just watched The Barbershop. This is called Detoxing Bro Talk, was the name of our show. We are The Barbershop here on WGSN. My name is Dr. Christopher Salute. Thank you so much for watching. The show is brought to you by a couple of folks. The show is brought to you by Bold Brand Management and Bold Solutions. The show is also brought to you by the Whimsy app, and the show is obviously brought to you by the Going Solo Network and the Going Bold Network, which is our brand new network here on WGSN. So we're so excited to bring it to you. And if you have a topic that you want to talk about, if you have a show that you want to sponsor, if you have a guest that you want to bring on and they've got something to talk about, please do hit me up. You know where to find me because I've probably shared the show with you or you've interacted with me before. I want to thank you so much for your energy. This is WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. I'm your host. This is The Barbershop, and that's the show. Cut.